Hi Tubies, here's Alexandra again, and welcome to another video of Painting Essentials. In the last episode I showed you how to paint a smooth coat of paint, and here we have an example of that. We have here smooth areas on the legs, and all the fur parts are really smooth color coats. Well, in today's video we want to talk about shadows. What are they? How do we apply them to our miniatures, and what products do we use for that? Well, if you look at your own clothes, or for example at this little piece of fabric, if we fold that up, you see that it has several areas that are dark, like here for example. Then it has its normal color, and it has highlights here on the ridges. And this is what gives this object, this piece of fabric, its three-dimensional tone. When we move it around, you see that the highlights and shadows will shift as well. So we want to simulate that on our miniature. So he has fabric on his legs, and you see all those folded areas and all those risen areas. Same applies here to all the fur parts. There are risen areas and areas deep in the recesses. So how do we apply shadows to them? That's quite easy. We have three products for that. We have glazes, we have shades, and we have contrast. So these three products, at the time at this filming, these glazes are taken out of the product line from Games Workshop, but I guess there are other companies out there that produce glazes. So what are those? As you can hear, they are quite liquid. They are literally very, very thin paints. So like every liquid, they have a tendency to run really nice into the recesses of the miniature and to shade them there. That's why the main ones are called shade. They are there to apply shadows to your miniatures. But what is the difference between these three variants? Well, the glaze is I would say, the weakest of the three. That means that the amount of pigments in this batch of paint is lower than the other two. That doesn't mean that this paint is useless. No. It has a very special purpose. It is there to tint your miniatures with a specific tone. You are not going to use this so much for shadows. You're using that to give the overall color a different hue, like you lay a filter over your miniatures. So for shadows we won't use that. So that leaves us with these two. In increasing order, we have the shades, and then even more increasing the contrast paints. That means that the pigment count in those two are quite higher than in the glaze, and here this is the most concentrated version of pigments. For our shadows, we will use simply here the shade. So how do we apply this? It's quite easy. You take your brush, you take your shade color, put it in your bristles, and then we simply apply it on top of the miniature. You see how the shade is going into the recesses of this fur pattern and giving it a nice shadow in those areas. So we could also use the black here for his trousers, but we will use a different shade for that. So we simply take now here Seraphim Sepia. So shades and washes are also sold in different colors. This now is a brown, and as you can see, it shades the trousers quite nicely. You can also apply this here on the leather parts. So you can see here I have also already applied it here to the straps on his feet, and there you go, there you have it. This is how you simply apply shadows over a miniature. One thing to notice is this is quite liquid paint, so if you are putting the miniature upright to dry, then the shade will run down, and well, to fight that, for drying it is better to leave them lying down to dry. So that's it for this tutorial video. In the next version we will talk about adding highlights. See you, your Alexandra.